Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How's it going? I think I'm finally okay with time change. Hello, Snazzy. How are you, darling? Think I'm finally okay with it now. It seemed to have hit my cat harder than me. He is not used to it at all. This morning I actually woke up at a normal hour for normal people, not 3 in the morning like I normally do. So it'll sort itself out. Next thing you know, you guys will be blasted with videos at like 4 o'clock in the morning, like I've done before. And people come in, they're like, Brooks, what are you doing up? And I'm like, well, when you go to sleep at 7 p.m., that tends to happen. So I'm okay on that. Welcome back. I think today we're going to be able to get up to where we're at now in the case of Gannon. That was a really tough show to get through yesterday, but you guys are the coolest people. Common sense, level-headed. And we can all agree that Letecia is a different breed of evil. She is a different breed of evil. She was welling up for this, what they called a violent event in the probable cause affidavit. It was beyond violent. Gannon was 11 years old. 11 years old. He knew what was going on. He knew it. He knew she had a gun. He knew she had a knife. He had defensive wounds on him. He was fighting for his life. So yesterday, where we ended the show, and I want to thank everybody who was in here and who came on panel. I'm going to post the link in a minute. Come up, chat it up with me. So we ended with the extradition, where she was in South Carolina and the judge was explaining extradition to a freaking school teacher. Okay, so he's explaining it to her as if she's never participated in any sort of civics discussions. But anyway, he also seemed a little taken aback by the horrific probable cause that he had to read. He says to her, you can waive your extradition. I mean, you can fight it or you can waive it. He even said, I have a feeling they're in the air right now. They're coming to get you. With what you did, they're on the way. And they were. So, we know that she got extradited from South Carolina back to Colorado. From there was a series of crazy events. When she was talking to the judge in South Carolina, she still seemed unfazed by this violent event. She still kind of seemed to be pretty detached from the situation. Well, she got fazed real quick. Because when they got to Salina, Kansas in her extradition transport, she attacked a deputy. That deputy had to go to the damn hospital. And it got crazier when she got to Colorado. She filed a lawsuit, fired her pro bono attorneys, not pro bono, public defender attorneys. Wanted to represent herself. She wrote some of the most insane letters you could imagine to the judge, basically comparing her education and her intelligence to the judge. Like, hey, buddy, I'm just like you. Educated person sitting here in the jail. She really stirred things up at the El Paso County Inn. So let's get to the comments, and we're going to get to what she was up to in Colorado. All right. Mama K's a new member. Mama K, welcome back, my friend. Jamie Lunas, very important question. Is she insane? She's crazier than a shithouse rat. Oh, she is. She's nuts. She has been deemed sane A few weeks ago, the judge in Colorado said to her, "Enough's enough. We've gone through all of these mental evaluations for you. You're sane." But there is a difference between someone who just doesn't know better. They don't know what they've done. They don't have any understanding of what they have committed. And then there is someone like batshit Letecia who had such a deep resentment for her husband, Al. At the time, her husband, he would die if he was called her husband now. There's Al. She had a lot of stuff cooking up until January 27th, 2020. Her internet searches showed a woman that was coming unraveled and was letting these things eat at her. All of this stuff was really eating at her. There's Gannon. I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine. Of course, there's Crazy Eyes right there with her oily hair. Terrible shampoo they have there in the El Paso County Jail. Nasty, nasty woman. She's saying she did this with full understanding that she was taking Gannon's life. That's for sure. Cats, Chats, Crime, and Coffee said, "Brooks, I made it to page 13 on the probable cause affidavit, and I'm already beyond outraged. This is some shit." You're right. First time I went through that probable cause affidavit, I had to take it in chunks. If you can breeze right through it, you got a stronger stomach than me. Because even to this day, when I go back and I reference it because of something that's come up in the case, or like I had to do on the show yesterday, there's always something in it that I'm like, damn, I forgot she did that too. Rhonda said, "This is heartbreaking to read what Gannon was put through by this evil woman." She said, "I literally feel sick to my stomach. I have to take a break reading this. I will continue later." Again, that probable cause. When the probable cause came out in Idaho and people were like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever read. There's Letecia going, "Hold my beer. I got one even better for you." I've read a lot of arrest affidavits. I've read a lot of probable cause affidavits. I've read them. Nothing compares to this one. And then we have to remind ourselves from when we were in school and we were learning about these different documents that our government uses, that the probable cause is their weakest evidence. Their probable cause has his blood in the electrical outlets in his room. Pictures of a mattress. It's hideous. Goldie Gal said, "I watched that video of Harley Hunt getting ready for her vacation to the Caribbean. I heard she had a vacation coming up." Just to remind you from yesterday, this is Harley. This is Letecia's daughter, her biological daughter, Gannon's stepsister. This is Harley. A lot of people have questions about Harley. Did she know? Was she just a witness? Was she an accomplice? What's going on? It's a hot topic to this day. Some people come real unglued if you bring up Harley, but we're cool here. She said, "I watched that video of Harley getting ready for her vacation to the Caribbean. This girl is not bothered. She is very fabulous. Just ask her. She reminds me of the Morphew girls." Damn, throw that in there too. "Image is everything. These girls need a great big dose of humility and compassion and self-awareness. I feel sorry for all the young men out there that have to sign up for this kind of selfish, narcissistic sickness." Well, I haven't seen the video yet. I asked Goldie Gal to send it to me because I do want to see it. And I know a lot of people are wanting to do a separate show just about Harley. We have a lot of questions about Harley. It's just my opinion. I don't think Letecia would ask her to get cleaning supplies And Harley believed that she's picking this stuff up for a crime scene cleanup. She was leaving work that day, and she also picked up personal things for herself. She wasn't in a hurry to get the crime scene cleaned up. So that is one thing. I do wonder what she thought later, what she thought of the pit stop in Florida where her mother took her stepbrother, who was in a suitcase, and threw him out under a bridge in Florida. By now she's put all this together. So the videos that people see of her, it bothers them to no end, because if I've seen the probable cause, she's seen it. She can also put all this together and know that what she was asked to pick up was to clean up her brother's murder. She also knows the pit stop in Florida was to dispose of his body. So her attitude doesn't sit well with people. A lot of people say that since she didn't tell the authorities about the cleaning supplies when she was first asked about Gannon, she could have been charged with obstruction. But they didn't charge her, so she would testify, because at one time she was not cooperating. It was reported by a local channel in Denver. I don't know about all that. I've never seen anything saying that she got any sort of plea agreement or anything. The only reason, in my opinion, I don't think a plea deal happened with Harley is because I don't see Al or Landon going for that. Anybody that could have helped Letecia, I think they would want nailed to the wall. They've really wanted to talk to Harley. They want Harley on the stand, as you know. She's listed. The most recent thing I have read, she is going to witness. She's going to be in this trial. So she better get back from the Caribbean soon. She is going to be on the stand testifying in her mother's trial. I don't know how aggressive either set of attorneys are going to get with her. I don't know. To me, she'd be kind of almost like a hostile witness. Because in the beginning, like I said, she wouldn't cooperate. And when asked about Gannon, she didn't mention anything about these cleaning supplies she was asked to pick up. She didn't say anything about it. I mean, from the probable cause, it seems that they wouldn't even need Harley. They have plenty of evidence that they don't even really need her. But if you guys want to do a show, an in-depth, deep dive, let me know. I'll make it happen. November Day said it's child abuse, but this was also an execution. When you shoot someone, that's a planned event. There was time for her to think about what she was going to do. I think so too. I think after that Sunday night with the candle that I don't think caught anything on fire, I'm speaking from experience because I've knocked quite a few over in my time. I know how to get wax out of carpet real fast. I think between that, she was up all night doing her Google searches. She drove around with him for several hours that day. Stupid, silly errands. She tells Al he was up and down all night with stomach problems. It was said that Miralax was kept on hand for Gannon because of his stomach problems. Did it ever occur to anyone that he might have had these stomach problems, not because he was a preemie, but because his anxiety was through the roof because of what this woman was putting him through? I know some people say, well, why didn't Gannon tell his dad? He might have been afraid of getting in further trouble. Kids think everything's their fault. They think if an adult is shaming them, punishing them, yelling at them, taking things away from them, they must have done something wrong. Horrible. So she takes him on all these silly errands. She says that He had stomach problems all night. We've all had to call into work because of a sick kid. We've all had a sick child, or we've worked with someone who couldn't come into work because they have a sick child. That's all there is to it. But she says that her stepfather was runned over by a car so she wouldn't be at work that day. Really? Really? Who would even need to make that up? Plus, the day before, she had taken Gannon to the Garden of the Gods on a hiking trip. She videoed a lot of it, went to Burger King. Seems like a normal day. Then all hell breaks loose. And, and this word that November Day uses is so spot on. She cornered him. She executed him. And he knew what was going on. He knew it because he was fighting back. He was fighting that animal. Could you just imagine? All right, so just a little recap from yesterday. Let's go to New Year's Eve 2019, okay? That's Letecia on the screen right there. She's out ringing in the new year. It's going to be the best 2020 ever, she told all her Facebook friends. She's got on a spiffy backpack. She's got on her best fleece sweatshirt that zips up in the front. She washed the oil out of her hair. She's shaking that thing that Al used to be in love with. But there was other stuff going on. We know it. Yeah, here we go, son. Yeah, here we go, son. First. All right, so she's out partying it up. I don't see Al in any of these clips. Could be the beginning of the end. Because right around this time, if you look on the screen, let me put my glasses on. We have a lot of searches going on. The PCA doesn't go back as far as how long they really think this resentment was going on. But here's a few samples of her searches. This is just January 25th up until the 28th. The murder was the 27th. Find real military singles. Not a fake military single. She wants a real one. Parenting should be 4 people, not 1. That's very strange because some people would say it takes 2, but she needs 4. I'm overdoing all the work for my stepkids and their mom doesn't help. If you aren't involved in your kid's life, you are shitty. But you can murder them. My husband's ex-wife does nothing for her kids. I wonder if my husband's ex-wife is sending me a Valentine's Day card since I raise her kids. One day, some people will wish they treated you differently. Why should my husband choose me over family? People wonder why she went after Gannon the way she did. A lot of it had to do with Al's strong bond with Gannon. She's a very, very jealous, narcissistic person, and that jealousy really took over. Plus her extreme resentment and hatred for Lena and Gannon's biological mother. This is Lena and Gannon together on the screen with the Easter Bunny. When Lena came home from school on January 27th, Letecia sent her outside to play. Not get a snack, not do your homework, not tell me about your day. You can't see. Oh, excuse you, OJ. OJ's over here sleeping. He must be having a dream. Wouldn't let her see Gannon for obvious reasons. My son burned the carpet. How do I fix it? Parents who put their kids before their nails. She seemed to have an issue with Landon getting manicures, I guess. It's crappy some parents don't care for their kids or buy them presents. School is out. Is it okay for my kid to stay home alone? This is at 12:57 a.m. in the morning. We're cooking up. We're cooking it up. Son's sick. Can you stay home? Son is sick, but I have to go to work. What's so bizarre about these searches is that she had already been fired from that job, I believe. So when she was texting her boss to say my stepdad got run over, they were probably like, that's okay. You no longer have to check in with us anymore. Talk about crazy. Hey, Snow, what's up, girlfriend? Hey, Bella. All right, so she's out partying it up on New Year's Eve, just a few weeks before the murder. The searchers are going nuts. She wants real military singles. She wants a man that doesn't have kids, a man that will pay her to raise his kids. Wants to know how to turn Al on again. A lot going on. A lot. Then we get to the Sunday night before the murder. And this is where she is taunting Gannon.
Well, devastating. Initially, Scott, I can't lie, when the TMZ information.
Gannon, I promise this is the last time I'm going to ask you. I'm just freaked out, okay? Are you sure you didn't do it on purpose?
He did it.
Okay, you promise. You promise.
On purpose.
Pinky promise.
Pinky.
Okay, all right. So listen. All right. We're gonna have to sell stuff to fix it. Okay. So we figure out what we gotta sell. We can sell the sofa. We can sell whatever, because we gotta get it fixed. So, lady, don't be mad at us and kick us out of the house. Okay? You got it?
She makes me sick. The way she's taunting him, setting up the scene. He said he was bleeding. Melissa said his voice, this video still haunts me. Me too. She took the video, but according to her, it was on accident. Every time we have a case where somebody takes an accidental video, things that make you go, was it really an accident? Or did she think this was her proof that he was acting up? You never know about her. All right, so yesterday where we ended it is where she was getting extradited from South Carolina. Here is El Paso County, Colorado. Letecia Staunch, who was accused of killing her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon Staunch, left a Kansas jail early Thursday morning and is now back in El Paso County, where she faces first-degree murder charges. During the cross-country drive to bring Letecia to Colorado following her arrest, she allegedly slipped out of her handcuffs and attacked a deputy who was part of the extradition team. Now, we saw yesterday when she was speaking to the judge in South Carolina, she seemed pretty unfazed and detached from everything that was going on. Now, her probable cause affidavit had not been read to her at the time, but she was well aware of what was going on. En route to Colorado, crazy kicks in again. She decides to give that deputy a little taste of what she handed Gannon. She's insane. Not insane to where she doesn't know what she's doing. She is insane in a criminally evil way. All right, so after all that, they bring her ass back to Colorado. She's in a smock. Now, that bald-headed guy there in the middle between Letecia and her attorney, that's not Letecia. When I very first saw this news article, I thought they shaved her greasy head. That's not Letecia. You'll see her in a second. They say they have her in a smock because of death threats. They do mention the death penalty in this. They explain why they can't go after the death penalty for her. There's a longer hearing after this one, and it's like 30 minutes long. We don't need to go through that today. We can do it on another show. But Al and Landon are in the courtroom. And judges are always really big about don't stir up anything in the court. Don't show any emotion. I don't know how you could sit there and hold your composure looking at that thing. How could you even look at her knowing what she did in his bedroom? Let's look at this.
Woman accused of murdering her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon.
Letecia
Smock appeared in what's called a safety smock instead of an orange jumpsuit. That's often used for prisoners on suicide watch. Her public defender says Smock and her family have reported threats to their safety.
Okay. The other people that are sitting in that little room with her while they're looking at Letecia, they look freaked out to be by her. Just my opinion. So they have her in the smock. They say death threats. That was a real thing. People weren't shy about it either. They were like, I'll take my 30 days in Facebook jail. And they were after her. Not only were they after her, though, Al was getting a lot of it. Landon was getting a lot of it. Harley was getting a lot of it. These people were coming unglued. But it's kind of a tough pill to swallow when you see this freak of nature. She's in a smock to protect her. Hey, those other inmates in there could have at any time just jumped on her ass. I don't know. They looked a little freaked out to be by her. Yet Gannon was brutally executed in his own room.
They've also petitioned against having news cameras inside the courtroom for future proceedings, but a judge has yet to make a decision on that. As part of the extradition process, law enforcement drove Smock more than 1,700 miles from South Carolina back to Colorado. Our cameras were rolling as the transport van pulled into the El Paso County Jail this morning.
I am disappointed that the death penalty is going away because it is a valuable law enforcement tool. Absolutely.
Why is it valuable?
Because it's used oftentimes to hold the most egregious violent offenders accountable.
Meanwhile, community members and students across the area and at Fountain for
Listen to the DA say that again. The death penalty is a great tool, he says. It's very sad that he said it's not on the table because at this time, the governor of Colorado did not want to use the death penalty. He wanted it taken off the books. We're not going to use it in this state anymore. And he says it's a great tool because you hold the most egregious, the worst of the worst accountable. Nothing worse than getting in front of the judge and being told, not only can you not be in society, you can't be on earth any longer.
I am disappointed that the death penalty is going away because it is a valuable law enforcement tool. Absolutely.
Why is it valuable?
because it's used oftentimes to hold the most egregious violent offenders accountable.
Meanwhile, community members and students across the area and at Fountain Fort Carson High wore blue today, Gannon's favorite color.
It's something that I'm really passionate about, something that our community is really passionate about. And sorry, it's just really sad. And we definitely wanted to show the support.
News 5 at 10.
And good evening, everyone. Thanks for watching.
All right. So in that clip, they, in a way, they kind of shot themselves in the foot because one of the complaints was extensive media coverage. The next thing you know, they said the whole town's wearing blue for Gannon and they're all showing up to vigils and everything. But it is what it is. Nobody ever said the media is our friend. All right. This was early March of 2020. A little over 3 years ago. That's how long this craziness has been going on. A few weeks after her first appearance in court, a discovery was made in Florida. Lo and behold, that discovery was Gannon. In Florida, in a suitcase. Where Summer said, was she on drugs? Nope, not a drugger, not a drinker. Pure D evil.
News broke that Gannon's body was found in Florida. We've been inundated with inquiries from the press and the public. This will address only what has taken place as a result of that development in this case. As I've said in the past, we will not try this case in the media. Today, I filed new formal charges in the case against Letecia Stout. Those charges are murder in the first degree after deliberation, a Class 1 felony that carries a potential prison sentence of life in prison without parole. In addition to that, I've filed 8 counts of crime of violence for the alleged use of a firearm, a blunt instrument, a knife or other sharp object, and for causing the death of Gannon Stout. These new charges are added to the original 4 charges that we originally filed in this case. Keep in mind, these are merely allegations. All defendants are presumed innocent until and unless they are proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I will not compromise the integrity of this investigation, so I will not discuss the circumstances surrounding Gannon's death, nor any details regarding the discovery of his body. And please understand, this development.
All right, and I'm just going to say this real quick. Now, the innocent till proven guilty, and we get people that come into chat, quite a bit. I know something was said about Candace Wells just recently, saying, how dare, you say any of these things about her. She's never been convicted of anything. Look, in free society, we don't have to wait on a conviction. She's in jail. There's a 32-page probable cause with nothing but evidence against what she did to Gannon. So the innocent till proven guilty, that's a constitutional thing. I didn't write the Constitution. I wasn't there for that. Great document, by the way, don't get me wrong. And I don't work for the courts. So I can say right here, this bitch is guilty. She is guilty. And I can't imagine any jury sitting through this trial having any doubt of her guilt. Auntie M said, how long after he was found? He went missing January 27th. He was murdered January 27th. So roughly 2 months. That's how long.
Investigation. So I will not discuss the circumstances surrounding Gannon's death, nor any details regarding the discovery of his body. And please understand, this development does not mean the investigation comes to an end. This still remains a very active investigation. So if anyone has any credible tips, please contact the El Paso County Sheriff's Office tip line at 719-520-6666 or email those tips to tips@elpasoco.com. I do want to thank everyone involved with the investigation, including the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and our partners, our new partners in Santa Rosa County, Florida, to include the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office and the District 1 medical examiner in that jurisdiction. We do still have a pending court date for Letecia Stauch's next appearance in court, which is April 14th, 2020 at 3 p.m.
Can you ask any questions real quick?
I may not be able to answer them, but you can ask me.
Can you explain how the coronavirus outbreak here is changing cases moving forward? Obviously, you just said we have a scheduled appointment, but they could be up there, right?
Yeah, the chief judge in this district has issued some orders that impact really cases where defendants are out of custody. Any in-custody defendants, like Letecia Stauch, those cases are still being heard as scheduled, at least according to the last release that we've received.
In the past, we'd asked you about trying to move forward without a body. This changes things, right?
It absolutely changes things, yes.
You might not be able to answer this, but can you tell us how long Gannon had been passed away for when he was found?
I'm not going to get into those details.
Can you say anything about how actually finding him or finding his remains now helps the investigation?
Well, anytime you have a homicide case, the body has a lot of evidence associated with it, and I'm speaking in only a general sense. I'm not going to talk about the specifics in this case, obviously.
Had detectives already been looking in Florida when Gannon's body was found?
I'm not going to get into those details.
How's the family doing currently?
We met with the family earlier today, and obviously they're distraught with this information. They were still holding out hope that Gannon would come home alive despite the original charges that we filed in this case. And they're struggling, and they rightfully would be, considering the circumstance of this case. It's tragic.
Absolutely heartbreaking. So they go to them, and here's the finality. We have found Gannon's body. Oh, God. From my understanding, both Al and Landon, his biological parents, wanted to see Gannon, and they had to say, mm-mm, mm-mm. We found him in Florida. We found him in a suitcase. DOT workers found him. Dang it, Kitty. DOT workers found him. I mean, the words were he was basically liquid. Horrible.
And we, like I said at the beginning, our hearts go out to them.
The sheriff's office said initially there was a tentative identification. Clearly, we feel comfortable enough going out and saying, though, that we have found this body. Can you explain the difference there?
I would just stick with what the sheriff's office released in their press release today.
Can you talk about what it means to investigators themselves emotionally to have this?
I think that would be a great question as we get further along in this case, probably towards the end of the case rather than right now.
Snow had a comment in here earlier, and I don't talk about it enough. I don't think about it enough. Horrible of me. Imagine the people that found Gannon having to see what they saw and then find out later, be able to put a face with the suitcase, so to speak. That's Gannon on the screen. They realized when they opened up that suitcase, they knew something in there didn't look right. They call their boss, they call the authorities, and they're like, whoa. Then they just mentioned the investigators. I couldn't imagine being these investigators. You get a call. Gannon went to a friend's house. I've been having some behavioral problems with him around the house. And he ran away. He won't come home. And then as they get into it, they realize that the crime scene is his bedroom. They see a mattress with his blood, the carpet soaked, threw the pad into the foundation of the house. His blood's in the electrical outlets. She drug him out through the house to the garage, put him in a suitcase, and had him in a car. Left that car at the airport, rented another car, placed him out in the woods somewhere, picked him back up, put him in the back of a U-Haul van, drove him to Florida. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine the evidence taking you that way, and you're realizing this person was in my community.
Our job isn't done.
Timeline on bringing him back and giving him a formal funeral and services?
So that will probably go a lot towards what the family's decisions are. I'm not in a position to answer that. Any other questions?
When you say the investigation continues, this was one of the big steps we were trying to get to, but we're still looking for more evidence.
We're always, every homicide investigation, the investigation continues all the way right up to trial, actually. So that's not any different for this case. The only thing I want to add is that when everybody leaves today, Lee Richards, our PIO, is in the back of the room, and she will have copies of the new amended complaint and information, so you can take a copy of that when you leave.
Does that include the old charges as well?
All of the original 4 charges are included with the new charges.
Can you explain the difference? Previously, we hadn't said there was a certain level of knowing that we were trying to approach. You said it was knowing but not premeditated. Now we are at premeditated. Can you
The new count of first-degree murder, that class 1 felony that I added, is with intent and deliberation. That's the classic first-degree murder charge that people think of when they think of first-degree murder.
And we can't say the difference of why we've added that.
I'm not going to get into why we've added that. That would get into the facts.
Can you explain why there is a gag order in this case and what that does to protect the case?
Yeah, so it sort of gets back to what I said at the beginning, that the charges are merely allegations and everybody's presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why gag orders go into effect and why gag orders say we can only talk about certain things that happen in the courtroom. When we file formal charges like we did in this case, and when we file amended charges like we did today, those are public records, and so we can talk about those and not get into the actual facts that support those charges.
Speaking of public records, have you been in contact with the judge in terms of releasing the arrest affidavit or probable cause affidavit in terms of?
Not since the last court date.
How much more important is it to you to prosecute Letecia Stockton to the fullest extent?
I'm not going to get into that. Every single homicide case that I've ever prosecuted, I take it very seriously.
Can you go into detail about any of the new charges and what those are?
So I've already laid out what they are, but the new count 1 is the with intent and deliberation, the murder. 8 counts of crime of violence sentencing enhancers, and those allege the use of a firearm, the use of a blunt instrument, the use of a knife or other sharp object, and then the 4th and 8th version of those is causing the death of Gannon Stout.
Those are some pretty horrific sentence enhancers, don't you think? 11 years old, gun, blunt object, sharp object. Not to mention, he said the premeditation, that is a totally different element of a crime, the way that the law looks at it. Not us, but the way the law looks at it. It couldn't be self-defense. Gannon's 11. She planned this. Snow says, I guarantee there was prior abuse to poor Gannon. I guarantee it. When I heard about all his stomach problems, how Miralax was kept on hand all the time, I said, she probably had been picking on him for years. And what a thing. Al goes out of town for work, and that's when Gannon supposedly runs away. Al asks her, why did you rent a car? Well, she can't tell Al because, you know, the car you bought me, Al, it's got your son's body in the trunk. So she couldn't tell him that. She tells him she rented a car because she's going to go look for Gannon, but she doesn't want Gannon. She doesn't want to be in something Gannon would recognize. That would have been, I would think, where Al would say, why would he be running from you? Over here, welcome to the channel. Over here says he was abused. The clip that I played earlier of Letecia shaking her thing on New Year's Eve came from the Over Here channel. I'm going to put it in the description. A lot of good stuff on there. Lana said that would be traumatizing to find his remains like that. Traumatizing for the DA, too. I mean, look at all these people she has touched, and not in a good way. Not in a good way. Listen to this again.
New charges and what those are?
So I've already laid out what they are, but the new count one is the with intent and deliberation, the murder, 8 counts of crime of violence sentencing enhancers. And those allege the use of a firearm, the use of a blunt instrument, the use of a knife or other sharp object. And then the 4th and 8th version of those is causing the death of Gannon Stout.
Do you believe that Gannon was killed here in Colorado?
We have jurisdictional requirements, so we couldn't charge it if we didn't think that it occurred here in our jurisdiction.
Do you think anyone else is involved?
I'm not going to get into that right now.
Thanks for coming here, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, that reporter is an idiot. Do you think he was killed in Colorado? Well, I don't think Letecia moved his bedroom to Florida and got back that day. Are you serious? You don't show up to a press conference and not read the shit they're talking about. Hell, even I would be better prepared for that. Do you think he was killed in Colorado? He goes, well, yeah, we have jurisdiction, so obviously it happened here. Happened in our town, in our county. Over here said Al should have had questions when she picked him up from the airport in a rental car. That's what I was saying. Yeah. When I first heard about the rental car, I thought, did the dad not have any questions? Especially when she said, well, I need to be in something that Gannon wouldn't recognize me in. All right, then the other reporter asked, is anybody else involved? Now, this was at the time, 3 years ago, when people had read the probable cause and they knew that Harley had bought the cleaning supplies. They knew that Harley had left with her mother, which actually does make sense. She left from Colorado to South Carolina. She would have been with her when the suitcase with Gannon was thrown out in Florida. So that was a heavy question at the time. That was a very heavy question. Christina says, Brooks, you know Al cheated on Landon with Letecia, right? That's why they divorced. Yes. Yeah. So with that being said, Letecia really shouldn't have had all that hate for Landon. You think it would have been the other way around. But Leticia's like, you know what? Oh, Landon sold me a bad bill of goods around here. I got to figure something out. Snow said, how come trials aren't filmed for public? What trial? I mean, this one's going to be. The Murdaugh trial was public. Some aren't. Some judges won't allow it. Jeannie posted this in her Facebook group for Gannon, the T-Staunch case discussion group. It says KRDO and the Gazette have been allowed in courtroom during the trial. Other news outlets will be allowed to piggyback off these 2 feeds, whether it's by tweet or whatever way they want to do it. Also, Law and Crime will be streaming from their YouTube channel. The rest will be people would have to join in through webinar. And we are going to cover it here. We are going to cover it here. So thus far, and it's hard to narrow it down, what's the craziest thing that Leticia's done so far for you? It's hard to pick one. There's not a top 10. There's not a top 20. There's like a top 500. And this is very important to note. Now, Al's not on trial here. Harley's not on trial here. Landon's not on trial here. But Landon, all the way in South Carolina, had an idea that things in the home weren't gravy, if you know what I mean. When she brought up concerns she had particularly about Gannon, she was told to apologize to Letecia. I can just imagine how that conversation went. I can just imagine how that shit went down. Gotta be kidding me. All right, so as time went on, Letecia's behind bars, but she's getting more and more desperate. She hadn't thought to start writing letters to the judge or do anything or try to escape yet. But we do what all criminals do, and the law allows them to do. They have their competency questioned. They've always got a mental illness on top of it, too. And she took up a lot of the state of Colorado's time and money with her BS. Let's look at this.
Stell, so we just Hey there, I'm Sydney Stell. So we just got access to the letters that Letecia Stell wrote to a judge back in February. We got access late last night, and the letters she wrote are full of new information. So she wrote this letter to the judge saying that she believed the doctor who performed her competency evaluation was actually an actress and was friends with the DA. She said she was diagnosed with a form of mental illness back in.
Okay, you heard that right. As they are testing her competency to participate in her own defense, Boy Mom said no sound. Can you guys not hear me? Can you not hear the news clips? Let me know. I got to figure out something on my end. So she says that she was diagnosed, and it hasn't blanked out what she said she was diagnosed with. There's no evil bitch diagnosis. But if there is one, that's what she would have. Okay? So she said she was diagnosed with a mental illness, of course. She believes that the doctor that's assessing her competency is a paid actor that's actually friends with the district attorney. If I need to slow this down, let me know. She wrote this letter to the judge. Now, you can write all the crazy shit you want to the judge. The judge is going to be like, yeah, okay, file that over there, stamp it. I received it. They don't determine competency.
She believed the doctor who performed her competency evaluation was actually an actress and was friends with the DA. She said she was diagnosed with a form of mental illness back in 2016, although the exact condition was actually redacted from the letter. So we don't have that information.
She says, in 2018, I was hospitalized in Canada, crossing the border for 2 days and completed more OP treatment when I returned. I tell you this because it sets the stage for why I cannot work with my attorneys. I signed release forms for them to get all this information so they would have a better understanding of why I'm all over the place some days. I asked them to use the info from a non-biased doctor who worked with me more than 2 hours, but instead they sent a lady who was clearly an actress and is friends with the DA. Seriously? Tracy said she's full of it. She has all her faculties. She's got enough faculties to make up lie after lie after lie and manipulate the system to her benefit. Well, up until the judge recently said, enough, you're sane, we're going to trial. I had not heard this. Over here said, are y'all ready for this? News Today announced Letecia was part of a drug transaction in jail that resulted in a woman overdosing on fentanyl. I tell you what, those idle hands that she has in jail, the devil has been using them. She is twisted.
But she also said she's trying to protect her biological son. And the fact that she even has a biological son is new information to us.
All right, that's another thing she did. That's another thing she said. She's trying to protect her biological son. Well, Gannon was her stepson. She didn't do anything to protect him because, well, they found what was left of his body in a suitcase in Florida. She says, now I'm trying to protect my biological son. She doesn't have a biological son. She's just trying to look crazy. She doesn't need to even try to look crazy. We believe her. But we believe that she's crazy that knows what crazy is doing. The worst type of crazy, the evil crazy.
And she also said in this letter that there are 2 men involved with the crime who are walking free. She said one is a prominent member of an independent business. There's a ton in this letter. So I'm going to break that all down for you, give you all the highlights, exactly what to expect.
And that was another part of crazy. Now, in the probable cause affidavit, she was spinning all kinds of stories. People's stomachs were turned when we saw her news interview that we watched yesterday with her back turned towards the camera. But there was way more going on. During this time, she had also told the investigators that Gannon didn't run away, that she was scared. She was scared for Gannon and she was scared for herself. And that the blood that they found in his room was a combination of hers and his, because a guy named Eduardo had broken the house, arred both of them, and abducted Gannon. Okay, well, she forgot that story because as she's writing her letter about the Hollywood actress that's playing a doctor assessing her mental abilities, she says, there's people in town walking free that actually did this. No, there wasn't. Nope, there wasn't. All right, so I speeded up a little bit because several months later, after this letter, I believe, God, I hope. If not, I really messed it up, but we'll figure it out. She wants to represent herself. She was sending letters to the judge talking about basically how damn smart she is. She's smart as a whip, according to her. One letter, she kind of phrased it, I'm like you. I'm educated like you. All right. Are you now? Are you now? Well, she screwed up working on her own defense where she was going to represent herself. It doesn't work that way. You can't question the court and say, I'm not competent to stand trial, and then say, but I'm going to represent myself. They won't let you. But anyway, she pissed somebody off there, which doesn't take much for her, because she lost rights to use the law library. This was something else.
The Colorado Springs woman accused of murdering her 11-year-old stepson lost her library privileges at the jail for up to 90 days. 37-year-old Letecia Stout plans to represent herself, and most of the case against her can only be accessed at the jail library. Court records show she twice refused to use her scheduled library time, a violation of the jail's rules. During a hearing in February, the judge repeatedly tried to convince Stout she would be better off having an attorney. Katie Johnston for CBSN Denver.
Right. So they're like, whatever. You want to represent yourself? Go ahead. We've already explained to you over and over and over, it's not going to work out the way you think it is. And she makes it sound like she's juggling 3 jobs and just couldn't get to the law library when she was supposed to. So because she violated those privileges, she lost her privileges to use the law library for 90 days. You see why this has taken 3 years? She played the system like a fiddle, and they had to let her do it. I mean, as we sit here right now, she doesn't have all the rights in the world, but she still has way more rights than Gannon did in that bedroom. Way more. Now we get to the letter that she sent where she wants to represent herself. And it really goes without saying, in the time that her attorneys weren't working on her case anymore, she didn't do herself any favors. She's already got, just in the probable cause, she's got a mountain of evidence against her. I had it written down. I said on the show yesterday, I think the pages of discovery that were given to her attorneys were like pushing like 5,000 pages. So there's way more than the 32-page probable cause. So when they get to trial, it's all going to be spilled out, unless they're holding some back for an appeal. They do that sometimes. Good God.
Coverage of Letecia Stout case. A letter she wrote to the judge, unsealed today, with new insight as to why she made the decision to represent herself in court. She's accused, of course, of killing her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon, at their home in Lorson Ranch more than a year ago. Our Colette Bordelon spoke with legal experts today who call this letter a sort of preview for what Stout's arguments could look like in court.
We first heard about this letter just a few weeks ago before it was made public. The prosecution hadn't even seen it yet. In it, Stout says she's not mentally well, calls this a wrongful incarceration, and claims her defense team was, quote, in cahoots with the prosecution.
Okay, they're not in cahoots with the prosecution. They have to get the information from the prosecution so they know how to defend Letecia. Skittles Riddles 88, what a cool name. And that is one badass avatar. Welcome. Thank you for becoming a member. That is awesome. So her letter says they're in cahoots with the DA's office, with the prosecution. She's not competent, but she's competent enough to write all these letters to the judge, so she understands the system. She understands what the judge is. Also, she's incarcerated. She shouldn't be incarcerated. Since Gannon went missing, between all her lies, all her manipulation, her obstructing the investigation, because she clearly did that, it's all been about Letecia, the victim.
Calls this a wrongful incarceration and claims her defense team was, quote, in cahoots with the prosecution.
She's really placed the judge in a tough situation.
In 4 handwritten pages sent to Judge Gregory Werner.
I'm not saying what she's saying is not accurate. I'm just saying that it is certainly not fact at this point in time.
Letecia Stout, the woman accused of killing her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon Stout, laid out her reasoning for representing herself.
There's just kind of this flow in and out of what's making sense and stuff that doesn't make any sense.
Some of her claims she's not mentally well, suffering from bouts of insanity.
Right back to whether or not she is going to be mentally competent to represent herself.
But maintains her innocence.
She knows the audience she's writing to, and I'm not surprised by that at all.
Written in February from inside the El Paso County Jail after she had been found competent to stand trial for the second time. The letter has a lot in it, including evidence she wanted preserved, GameStop footage, finding a Texas police officer, and getting
a Texas police officer? No way would Crazy Train have flagged down a Texas police officer. At this point, I'm just going to take a guess and say she was on the government watch list. They might have searched her car just 'cause. And yeah, they can. I know people say, oh, no, they can't. They can't. Oh, no. She was fleeing Colorado after reporting Gannon missing. She wants GameStop footage to locate. They had all the footage they needed. She wants to preserve some evidence. Oh, girlfriend. The evidence is preserved. You actually preserved the most important, and that was Gannon. He told way more of the story than the investigators could put together in his bedroom.
cruise passenger list. She said before she has 2 critical pieces of evidence that will clear her name.
And I don't think that this.
We have been hearing about this critical piece of evidence, 2 pieces, for 3 years. Where's it at? Where are the 2 critical pieces of evidence to clear you? Why didn't you hand those over to the authorities in January of 2020? Why didn't you hand them over when you got to El Paso County after being extradited? Why didn't you? Crazy ass.
Letter gives me anyway any more confidence that she's really the right person who should be representing herself.
At her last hearing, after the judge had read this letter, he asked her again if the claims about the jail hindering her access to her attorneys would have changed her mind about self-representation. Stout firmly said once more she wants to represent herself, despite the letter alluding to significant mental health issues.
She can't say on one hand that I don't trust anybody else in the system, and therefore I'm going to represent myself. But by the way, I don't know that I'm doing a very good job of it either.
At Stout's last hearing, prosecutors said they plan on calling witnesses from the FBI during her preliminary hearing, set to start on May 20th. They have to have a list of those names drawn up by the end of this month so that Stout can review them. Always watching out for you, El Paso County. Club Portal on News 5.
So that she can review them. Oh my God. You know what? Even with 23 hours a day in her cell, and she's been there 3 years, that's still not enough time to become an attorney. No frigging way. She is beyond. So the judge asks her, are you not being able to participate in your defense? I mean, they've really catered to her. And I'm not bashing on them at all. I'm not they have to. They can't have anything come back in 10 years and say, well, when she wanted to represent herself, the judge didn't explain to her that the state of Colorado is paying for her attorney. The judge didn't explain to her that she'd be better off to use those attorneys. The judge didn't ask her if, being in jail, if that's getting in the way of discovery. No. Hello, Carly with an I. So, we speed up another few months. God only knows what she was doing in her cell, what she was cooking up for her next trick. She files a lawsuit. It's really not uncommon for people in jail to file lawsuits. I'm surprised she didn't file more. Her being the genius that she is.
Story this half hour. An El Paso County woman accused of murdering her stepson has now filed a civil lawsuit in federal court claiming she was mistreated in jail. Letecia Smock wrote a 13-page letter to the court claiming her civil rights were violated. I went through the complaint today. Here's what I found. Stout claims she was mistreated in jail by not receiving kosher food and says she was neglected for medical.
Now she's Jewish? What? They violated her First Amendment right. This is according to her, constitutional attorney Letecia, because they didn't give her kosher food? She's a lot of things, but she's not a Jew. What is she talking about? Since when does she have to have kosher food? And medical neglect? She's seeing lawyers she's seeing doctors all the damn time. Hell, the one doctor she saw was so smooth, she thought that lawyer was a paid actor. Please. You crazy ass.
and says she was neglected for medical care. The complaint names 2 El Paso County Sheriff deputies, a medical provider in the jail, and a food service provider. I spoke with Stephen Longo. He's an attorney in Colorado Springs who says this could present some issues in Stauch's trial for the murder of her stepson, Gannon. Currently, the court is awaiting the results of a mental health evaluation. Longo says this could pose some challenges when it comes to determining her sanity.
Well, it presents awful. It's generally a complex area of law, and it's decently articulated in the complaint.
Longo adds the complaint could come across as backtracking for the defense, as Stauch has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity.
But she's not insane. The judge said a few weeks ago, Betch, you're sane. You understand this process better than a lot of people. Way more. You get it. You understand it so well that you were accessing the law library to defend yourself. You understand this process so well that you know what amendments, you know what to pick to file a lawsuit. You filed a lawsuit. You obviously have understanding. You're just crazy. You're crazy in an evil way. Now, thank goodness, because we were all super worried about this. Super worried. She dropped her lawsuit. Okay? She did drop the lawsuit. Well, thank you. Because unlike this attorney that was on here, and that's what happens when they get their experts to come in and weigh in on these cases, sometimes they'll say stuff and you're like, really, dude? Really? You think this is really going to cause any complications? They have a 32-page probable cause. A probable cause is your weakest evidence. His body was found in Florida. She said a guy named Eduardo arred her and kidnapped Gannon. She attacked a deputy en route from South Carolina to Florida. Really? I'm going to post the link again if anybody wants to come up and talk. I got one more clip to go through, which really is where we sit now. We're going forward. They're going to start picking a jury March 20th, I believe. So next week? Trial is scheduled to start April 3rd. Now, as far as Harley, I don't know that Harley she's listed as a witness that's going to testify. I don't know legally what's attached to that. I have never read that she was subpoenaed to testify. I'm sure she has been. Erase that from your mind. Over here said she stuffed tissues down her pants. Yep. We had the whole peanut butter problem. She tried to escape. She's beyond insane. And with all of the stuff that she has stirred up, we can't and we won't. At least we don't play that game around here. I know other channels do, and I don't care what they do. We can't forget what happened in that bedroom. Gannon had defensive wounds on him. He's 11 years old. He's not a baby. I'm not saying it's okay to kill a baby. Don't get me wrong. He clearly understood he was under attack. He clearly understood this was not a punishment. He was fighting her. He had defensive wounds on him. I can't wrap my mind around it.
Nine News crime and justice reporter Matt Jablow joins us live.
I just really can't. And the probable cause that we have read and talked about a lot just in the Facebook group. I haven't gone through it page by page on this channel. If you guys want to, we can. Most people have a hard time getting through it. They're like, after a few pages, I have to get away from it. Then I'll go through a few more pages. So the same probable cause that we have read, and we don't know Gannon. We didn't know Gannon. His mom and dad had to read this. I couldn't. It's hard enough for me to get that picture out of my mind. I couldn't imagine being, well, his family, the workers in Florida that came across that suitcase. Hell, they probably had just watched that movie, No Country for Old Men, and thought there could be some cash in that suitcase. And then they find out, what? This is a missing child from Colorado? Here?
9 News crime and justice reporter Matt Jablow joins us live from outside that courthouse. And Matt, today the prosecution is laying out how they think she committed this crime, and it has some really upsetting additional details we hadn't heard before.
It sure does, Kim. Prosecutors say Gannon was shot to death by his stepmother. Today, they presented what seems to be a pretty compelling case. Again, a warning, some of the testimony could be hard to hear. The hearing began with a Florida sheriff's deputy who testified that Gannon Stauch's body was found wrapped in a blanket in a suitcase under a bridge near Pensacola. The cause of death was a gunshot to Gannon's jaw and a skull fracture. He had also been stabbed and had defensive wounds on his hands. A former investigator with the Colorado Springs Police Department then testified that if
shot, stabbed, the DA mentioned a blunt object, defensive wounds on his hands. In the probable cause, they say pay attention to, I think it said the left corner of the mattress. There was a lot of blood there. This was total rage. I can't, when I talk about this case, I can never find the right adjectives. Horrific, horrendous, morbid, gruesome, deranged, evil, vile.
wrapped in a blanket in a suitcase under a bridge near Pensacola. The cause of death was a gunshot to Gannon's jaw and a skull fracture. He had also been stabbed and had defensive wounds on his hands. A former investigator with the Colorado Springs Police Department then testified that a few days after Gannon disappeared, his stepmother, Letecia, rented a van and drove from Colorado to Pensacola with her 17-year-old daughter. At one point, the investigator said GPS showed the van stop for a few minutes at the same bridge where Gannon's body would later be found. And
okay, I would say that's some pretty important evidence right there. Listen to that again. Maybe someone needs to explain that to Letecia. Where they found his body in Pensacola. They have her right there. Now, I know that they were really hitting it hard in the media for quite a while, saying that they want to talk to anybody that saw her, saw that van badly. I don't know that they ever did, but we're going to find out at trial because I don't recognize all those names on there. Could be some people that saw her in Florida.
at one point, the investigator said GPS showed the van stop for a few minutes at the same bridge where Gannon's body would later be found. And later in the day today, an El Paso sheriff's deputy testified that 3 weeks after Gannon went missing, a plywood board with Gannon's blood on it was found in the same wooded area where Letecia had driven shortly after Gannon disappeared.
And they also believe, hey, Aggie, what's going on, Aggie? Aggie just popped in. they believe that his body was at one time in that area. She picked it back up. So we have the GPS that puts her right there at the bridge that he was found under. A piece of plywood with his DNA on it. We know what the DNA is. That's on top of everything in the 32-page document.
The preliminary hearing was scheduled to last 2 full days, but it wrapped up just a few minutes ago. The judge in the case said he will decide in 2 weeks whether or not to bind the case over to trial. Kim?
Also, the gun. Let me go back to that because I missed the part about the gun.
Florida sheriff's deputy who testified that Gannon Stauch's body was found wrapped in a blanket in a suitcase under a bridge near Pensacola. The cause of death was a gunshot to Gannon's jaw and a skull fracture. He had also been stabbed and had defensive wounds on his hands. A former investigator with the Colorado Springs Police Department then testified that a few days after Gannon disappeared, his stepmother, Letecia, rented a van and drove from Colorado to Pensacola with her 17-year-old daughter. At one point, the investigator said GPS showed the van stop for a few minutes at the same bridge where Gannon's body would later be found. And later in the day today, an El Paso sheriff's deputy testified that 3 weeks after Gannon went missing, a plywood board with Gannon's blood on it was found in the same wooded area where Letecia had driven shortly after Gannon disappeared. The preliminary hearing was scheduled to last 2 full days, but it wrapped up just a few minutes ago. The judge in the case said he will decide in 2 weeks whether or not to bind the case over to trial. Kim?
And since this report came out, the judge has said it's going to trial. She's sane. She understands. She's done more than participate in her defense. She's done way more than what we bargained for. We're going to trial. We're going to trial. They begin jury selection on the 20th, and trial is set for April 3rd. Let's bring up our friend over here. Hello, over here. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
So you've been following this forever and a day too. What
that I have.
What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, of all the cases that we follow right now, this one is probably the most it's a dead ringer. We already know who committed the crime. Earlier when you were saying, allegedly, it's really hard to use the word allegedly when you talk about Letecia Stauch.
No, I'll play with some of the cases and I'll say, allegedly. Not this one.
Not this one. No. This woman decided to create many false profiles all over social media. She took to social media, not only on Facebook, Instagram, she was on YouTube. She was talking to people, spinning a narrative in people's inbox. She was dropping the video of Sunday night's incident with the candle and whatever happened to Gannon. She dropped a phone call between Albert and Landon where she's, screen recording her phone, putting out this phone call, this private phone call between Gannon's parents. She was basically playing dirty from the jump.
Oh, big time. Big time. Yeah. And we all knew when the story broke, her story didn't make sense. He went to a friend's house and then ran away. Who's the friend?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. The location of their home in Lorison Ranch in Colorado Springs is in an area where it's in the middle of kind of nowhere. You have to drive to get to anything. And he was 11 years old. There's no way in the world that this kid would have decided that he was going to take off to his friend's house.
No. Plus, he had been kept home from school sick that day. So, of course, wouldn't Al have some questions like, well, why was he allowed to go play with a friend? He was up all night, keeping you up all night with this stomach problem. Then he goes to a friend's house and runs away?
Oh, remember, Al made all the decisions. Remember, this is out of her own mouth, you know, that Al made all the decisions for the children, but yet she let him go to this mysterious friend's house who she can't remember his name because once again, that was Al's fault. And yeah, she lied. It was very obvious that she was lying. To those of us who followed this from that very moment forward, we were like, no, something bad has happened. She made this up. Something bad happened. You only make things up to cover something. Something bad happened.
And something really bad happened. I mean, the way they pinned it in the probable cause was a violent event. I've never seen that written in a probable cause before.
Yeah. And it certainly was a violent event. I'm going to warn you, I am in my car and I just came up on a car accident. So if I hear sirens or anything, I'm just going to mute myself. So that way you guys don't have any interruption on your stream.
Oh, no, you're fine, girl. You're fine. And I mean, I'm telling you, unless you're employed by the cartel, you don't beat, stab, shoot, the whole 9 yards your victim. Her rage for this 11-year-old boy that I don't care what it is. No, it wouldn't be inexcusable in my book at all, period.
No.
I mean, just the rage she had focused on him.
It was inhumane. It was inhumane. It was brutal. It was overkill. It was unthinkable. And Gannon was a very sweet, kind, caring little boy. He didn't do anything wrong. He was a people pleaser. He tried to please everyone. He tried to please his mom and his dad. He was protective of his sister. He was so excited that he had a newborn baby sister, as his mom had recently given birth to a newborn child. He was always trying to please Letecia. And that I think about that all the time. He tried so hard for her. He wrote her a Mother's Day card thanking her.
Yeah. She had that posted on one of her Facebooks.
I know. She loved to brag about it. I would love to shove that card right in her face.
Teresa says Harley went to the store to buy cleaning supplies for her mother, right? Now let's talk about this and put it in context because a lot of stuff gets lost in translation. The way that went down is Letecia told her to pick up certain items from the store.
Correct.
A big problem with this is, I think Harley was getting out of school or she was getting off work, and she went and got these items for her mom. And these are items that you would use to, clean up blood if you really need to know the truth. That's what they were for, 100%. But now she didn't hurry home with them. She bought stuff for herself. She wasn't aware of the errand she was on. But it upsets people to no end. And this was on a separate report, not in the probable cause. That when investigators were speaking to Harley, she failed to mention that her mother had asked her to pick these things up.
Correct. With that said, I mean, I think that if you can stand back and look at this in hindsight, I don't think in the moment when Harley went to the store, I don't think she knew what was going on. I just think she thought she's on a store run. I don't think in that moment she was thinking, hey, gosh, these things clean up blood. No, those are innocent items that she had no idea what those were used for. Now, did she know something as time went on? Yeah.
She had to have put it together at some point because that probable cause is everywhere. And Harley has another account where she's in a lot of these Facebook groups, and it's no secret that she listens to a lot of these shows.
Yes, she does.
She definitely does. I mean, she has left her own after show comments. And
she's trying to capitalize on this as far as ways that she can further herself as an influencer. She even allows for you to subscribe to her YouTube channel, and yet she doesn't even have members content on her YouTube channel. She allows for you to subscribe to it just to pay her money. I mean, I'm not trying to be the person to get on here and come after Harley, because I understand that there's a lot of people that feel some sort of way about that. But I will say that Harley was in that house. Harley knew what was going on in the days after. Harley was there on Tuesday. She saw the chaos. She knew what was happening. She was there when her mother was interacting with all the family who came in, because there was family members from all sides that came. Letecia had family that came. Landon and her brother had come. Landon is Gannon's mother. Albert had his mother who had come, and I believe his sister had come, and maybe even his brother or uncle. Either way, they all had family in this house who were under severe distress. And the only posts that we ever saw out of Harley were things about her mother's $10,000 in jewelry and her clothing. In fact, to be fair, we've not seen much out of Harley and mention of Gannon up until she did her whole series of videos on TikTok, talking about her relationship with God. And at one point she talked about her brother dying and her mother being arrested. But I mean, she doesn't even hold her mother anywhere responsible. And I mean, I get it, it's her mother, but for those of us out there who have had children at Harley's age, that were Harley's age during that time period, we can attest that our 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, they know better. They know things. We're not in 1950, 60, 70 even. We are in the 2000s. This is not something where she was so naive that she didn't know something was going on.
Well, and I think, when I think about Harley, I think it would be impossible to think that your own mother could do this to your stepbrother, even if she was harder on Gannon. And I'm using that term loosely. It would be hard to think of that. But when when her mom was arrested and that probable cause affidavit was made public, you can't tell me she didn't read it. And she realized weeks later that when they stopped in Florida on that bridge, Gannon's body was with them.
Agreed.
So her not speaking out publicly about her mother, you can look at it one way or another. She's in denial. She still doesn't think her mother did it. Now, supposedly she's had private conversations where she's aware, but I don't know. I wasn't part of those. Or it's an ongoing investigation and she does not want to say anything until after. So I
think that's part of it. I absolutely think that's part of it. I believe she's got legal counsel who's guiding her. And she's also under the thumb of Leticia's best friend. And Leticia's best friend has been out there advocating for that innocence, doing a lot of the same kind of shenanigans Letecia does. And so I think she kind of controls, I don't want to say controls Harley, but this is someone who's Harley's godmom. Harley's in a very difficult place with family and not knowing her place of where she really belongs because of this incident. And so following that lead of her mother's best friend seems to be something that she's done.
I did see a exchange between her and an internet stranger, and somebody had asked her, does she keep in touch with Al? And she replied, no, I would never contact him, basically is what she said. And the thing is with screenshots, they're kind of like sound bites in the media. You don't know the first 30 minutes of the conversation. You just know that second clip that they put on the news. Kind of the same thing with screenshots. I don't know what led up to this question or what she said before or after. So I don't know when she says, no, I would never reach out to Al, if it's because she believes her mother that Al and Landon could be possibly a part of this, or because she's been told by the prosecutors, do not talk to Al or Landon.
I think there's some animosity there. You may notice she kept the family dog.
Yeah.
It's a dog's a dog. I mean, I'm a pet lover. I love dogs, but we're talking about the murder of a child, and who cares about a darn dog? But that dog was a hot topic.
There was a whole who gets the dog, and Harley's got the dog, and that's that. But I don't think it's a secret that there's a rift there, that there were some accusations. I mean, Letecia has been attempting to accuse Al of things throughout the duration of this. And again, I don't know that Harley has much of an independent thought or self-awareness. And so she's more of a follower. She's going to follow what she's been told, or what someone has told her to do. So I think that's kind of where that lands.
Yeah, I shouldn't say most, but I'm very interested in her testimony, what she's going to say on the stand, and really how she's going to act afterwards. I mean, right now she's out of the country, she's on vacation, and people are like, is she going to come back for the trial? And I'm like, I'm not 100% sure she was subpoenaed. Do you know for sure she was subpoenaed, or did she agree to testify?
She's been subpoenaed.
Okay.
And I personally,
Then she better get her ass back.
Yeah, I actually think she's going to testify. I really do. I think this is going to be the hardest thing she's ever had to do. I think this will be the first time she stands up independently. That's what I think she'll do. I think she'll testify. I'll eat my words if I'm wrong.
And this is going to be a different rodeo than what she's used to. There's not going to be any, well, when the investigator spoke to her and asked, about the day that she got home from work and Gannon was missing, she failed to mention that her mother asked her to pick up vinegar, baking soda, stuff like that. She failed to mention that. When she's on the stand, she's going to have to be real careful. And and they're going to have to be really careful with her. I could see her being a hostile witness.
I could too. Or just, she's learned a lot from her mother. She knows manipulation. She knows how to talk real sweet and appear real sweet and present herself so sweet and innocent. And I really don't know if she'll become quite hostile, but I think that she may have to come face to face with the reality of things right there on the stand, because it does seem like she's been avoiding the reality of things this entire time.
Yes. And I'm curious as to, is she going to be in the courtroom every day listening to all this be spelled out for her? Or is she going to show up for her testimony and get the hell out? That's a big difference as well.
I think, and this could be something someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, and it's my understanding, that unless I don't know that she'll be allowed to be in there during the additional testimony because she's a witness. But with that said, I think that the parents, even though they're witnesses, Gannon and Al, I think they'll still be able to be in there for the full testimony. So I don't know. The courtroom has extremely limited space.
Mm-hmm.
The front row is going to be reserved for family on both sides. So if Letecia has family, they'll be behind her on the front row. And then same thing behind the state, there will be Gannon's family. And those rows fit, if you're lucky, 6 people, if you're lucky. And so and then from there, it's reserved for some media. There's certain members of people that are essential that have to be in there. And then from there on, it's open to the public, and it's first come, first serve.
Okay. I was typing a comment, sorry.
Oh, you're okay. I can't even see comments, so.
So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Of course, Al will be testifying, I believe. Do you think they will for sure put Lena on the stand?
I hope not.
I hope not either, but she is,
I hope
part of it, because, when Lena got home, that's a good, of course they have the forensics, so they have a great idea of what time he was murdered. But when Lena came home and wasn't allowed to see Gannon and sent directly outside, that was another out of the norm type of thing for their household.
Yeah. In El Paso County, there is an organization called CASA. I don't know that CASA has been involved. My guess and instinct would be yes. My thought is that Lena will have a representative to represent her in court. So someone that she has met with during this investigation, who gave, who took notes and documentation, and they can get up and testify as to what Lena might have, and I even hate using her name, little L, what she might have experienced or seen, and hopefully that'll be the way they can approach her testimony, because my heart just breaks for her. There's no one in this world that was closer to her than her brother, and she's lost that, and she's very well aware of what's gone on around her in her life, and so hopefully they can spare her any additional trauma that she's probably already experienced.
Well, I mean, and also she's not really accusing Letecia of anything. She's just talking about what she has seen herself. She's not the accuser per se. That would be Gannon.
Right.
If Gannon had survived this, Gannon would have to take the stand and testify against her. That's just one thing that's in our Constitution. It doesn't give an age. It just says you have the right to face your accuser. So I really hope they spare her of that. I understand that she's still with Al. She didn't. I really thought after all this, Landon would, get custody of Lena and say nope. But
I agree. I have to plead the fifth on what I know about that, but I will just say that there are a lot of people on social media who feel strongly that Elle should be in the custody of her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hands down.
Hands down, because call me naive, call me whatever you want to say, but you're not going to convince me that Sunday night with the candle was the first time she had that boy scared out of his wits.
Yes, which I was going to touch on that when we were talking about Elle and her testimony. If that's going to come up, if there was any prior abuse, that would be a really difficult thing to come up, if she's testifying. I don't think they would go there with her. But I do believe wholeheartedly, based off things I know and things I've seen, that this was not the first round of abuse. And I also don't think that Harley got out unscathed. And I hope that Harley will advocate for herself. If she's not going to do it for Gannon and for Lena, I hope she does it for herself, because there were things that happened to Harley that should not have happened to Harley. And I hope she knows that.
She shouldn't have been asked to buy cleanup supplies for a crime scene.
Never. Or drug over to a news reporter to tell him what happened, or taken on a trip all the way to Florida with a body in a car. Or your job is to protect your children. And even in that moment, even after what Letecia had done, she should have kept her daughter out of it.
100% out of it. Because again, just my opinion, and there's no way to prove my opinion, I don't think Letecia would have had any problem with anybody else in that house being blamed for his murder, as long as it wasn't her.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If she could find a way to pin it on Lena, she would have.
Sure.
She's a monster.
Yeah, she is a monster.
Like I said, this is the only case where my brain freezes and I just can't come up with the right word. I can't get the right adjective, because she's just beyond evil.
Now, to flip this to another side of things, she did say that she didn't want to take care of the kids anymore.
Mm-hmm.
She did say that she needed to be out of this, that she needed to not be taking care of them. Now, in hindsight, if you look and you say, well, you know what? You're a stepmom. You're a grown woman. These are children. It's your responsibility. You married into this. Sure, on a surface level, that all makes sense. But deep down, had she been listened to, would we be here today?
No. No, the minute that she started that, I don't want to take care of your kids anymore. How come Landon is getting her nails done, but didn't send presents for Christmas or whatever her argument was? How come Landon's doing this? Landon's got this and this and this going on. She doesn't pay child support. When she started in on him with that resentment, I mean, hindsight's 2020, and I don't believe for a minute that Al would do things the same way that he did them.
Sure. But these kids could have been back with their mom. It was never is there ever been any kind of documentation or proof that has ever come out that Landon did not want her children and did not try for her children. The only allegations that have come out against against Landon came from Tisha. So a lot of the internet came and went on attack on Landon, but they all forgot the information they were attacking her with came directly from the person who murdered this precious child. That was the source of information. And even still, there has never once been anything documenting that Landon was unfit. She was never, ever found unfit or unable to take care of her children. She wanted her children. The only time that she was unable to take care of her kids was when she was hospitalized, because she was hospitalized during the pregnancies of each and every one of her children. She actually has a medical condition, and that medical condition requires that she be round the clock monitored during pregnancy, during a certain period of time in pregnancy. That's why Gannon was premature, Lena was premature, and the new baby was also premature.
Yeah. Actually had a comment from the last show, basically the same thing. And I said, you know what? She could have just grabbed Harley. I know it's not that easy, and it's not. It is not that easy to leave your life situation. It's not.
It's not.
But she could have, with all the planning she was doing, instead of planning to kill Gannon, she could have just planned to leave Al.
Agreed. But there was too much going on. She wasn't thinking about the kids. She was thinking about the affairs. She was thinking about their trip to the cruise. She was thinking about money. She was thinking about possessions, her Poshmark, her designer handbags. She wanted her status, her lifestyle. And there was nothing for her to go back home to. And she was a lousy teacher who was let go. She was not maintaining her teaching license back in North Carolina. She was, she had no future on her own. She needed that crutch. And when I say future, we're talking what she wanted out of a future, not things that matter, but materialistic future mattered to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's almost like in her twisted, warped mind, it looks worse to divorce Al than to kill Gannon. She really, in her mind, thought she was going to get away with this. Probably the whole body nonsense. She probably thought disposing of his body, hiding it thousands of miles away, was going to get her out of this. She's one of those idiots that thinks no body, no case. And that's what happens in a lot of these cases, but eventually they get solved.
Right. She followed true crime. She knew that there were certain things. That's why she was spinning this whole narrative and making it a mess, because it's harder to solve something if it's all over the place. But while she was making a mess, it made her look more guilty. So that just backfired.
And it's funny because those were her exact words when she wrote that one letter. That's the reason I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, she's all over the place because she did that by design.
There are a couple witnesses on the witness list that I have questions about. One of them being that there's a coroner that is unrelated to this case that it seems like might be related to Harley's father. Have you seen that?
No. Are you kidding me?
Well, and I need to go back. I'm a little rusty at the moment, but there is an additional coroner, the coroner that actually did Chance Hunt's autopsy. is on that coroner is on the list. I don't know if they'll call that coroner, and that gives me questions. Either A, did she do weird things when Chance died? Is there questions about Chance's death? I mean, it's been said that his death was like an overdose of sorts or something. Yeah. Oh, and during chat, there was someone who said that Tisha was married to Landon's cousin, and that was a previous marriage to Landon's cousin. That's not true. That was a rumor that was out there.
Yeah, I haven't
There's
heard
no
that.
relation.
I haven't heard that, and that's crazy because I've heard a ton of stuff because this case it took on a life of its own, and she was the one spinning the rumors and spinning the tales. This
Correct.
train left the station because of her, so it's like whoa. You have a 30-some page probable cause that all points to her, but you believe her?
Correct. I am very interested to see what her Aunt Brenda testifies. So for those of you that don't know, Aunt Brenda came to Colorado. She rented a Nissan Altima, and if you read in the arrest affidavit, right after Letecia did her backwards interview with Spencer Wilson from the news, her and her entourage had loaded up, and Letecia at some point took off in that Altima and went up to Perry Park Road, and that's when they believed that she retrieved Gannon's body. So Gannon was not initially in this moving van. He was initially inside of the Altima and later was moved over to the moving van, if everything in that affidavit is accurate.
Horrific.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I have graphic thoughts, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There had to have been blood. There had to have been, unless she, I'm just gonna, either way, she moved him around several times, and he was 11 years old. He was not a light body. Yeah, he was liftable, but, it would have looked like her lifting and lugging a suitcase in and out of things. And the suitcase topic came up early on in this. They looked for a suitcase. There had to have been a reason. They had to have thought there's a suitcase missing, or had to have an idea that she had done something of that nature.
Well, and also she's lifting, mind you, she's got a lot of crazy strength going on because of what she has going on in her own mind, and she's working on adrenaline.
Yeah.
But still, you go to pick up that suitcase. It's a wonder she didn't tear the suitcase up. I mean, my God, what brand of suitcase was this? I need to know. She goes to pick it up. It would be like picking, well, you're talking about dead weight. He wasn't in the condition that he was in when they found him in March. It would be like picking up a suitcase full of cement blocks. Exactly. How strong is this woman? I've always said she had to have help lugging this suitcase around. And why did nobody ask, why is that suitcase so damn heavy? And on the way to Florida, did anyone say, is there a smell coming from that suitcase?
Yes. Aunt Brenda, her sister, her daughter, her brother, did no one have any kind of sense, not even if they didn't see anything or smell anything. What about her behavior? You cannot tell me that she was not manic, because she was manic. There's no doubt about it. Even someone who isn't insane, if they were to kill a child, would not be okay and normal afterwards. So what was she acting like? So as much as I want to see Harley's testimony, I would like to know what Aunt Brenda has to say, because if Aunt Brenda comes into court and does not testify against Tisha and what she's done, but yet she did her the favor of renting her a car where his body inevitably ended up in, well, I'm not going to think too kindly of Aunt Brenda, but my thought is that that portion of the family seems to be distanced. Early on, we saw a lot of support for Letecia, but that has dwindled. it's been a long time. I saw a family member wish her a happy birthday once, and I don't go real life, but it took everything I had to keep my typing fingers back from saying, "Do you wish Gannon a happy birthday?"
Yeah.
But I didn't. I refrained.
She took Gannon's birthdays from him. But no, you're 100% right. It's one thing with Harley being her daughter, living in denial, because you're not going to come with the reality that your mother did this to your stepbrother. But Aunt Brenda, how dense are you? How dense are you? And I
don't think she is.
No, I don't think so either.
I think Aunt Brenda's smart, and I think Aunt Brenda probably knows. I also think that Tisha's sister Amy is smart. I think she knows. I think Tisha's sister Juju, she is from the street. Juju is not dumb. There's a reason I think Juju did not come, and that Juju is not on that witness list. She's got criminal mentality, and I don't think she would be a great witness. I think she's probably the strongest supporter of her sister that there is, but who knows?
It's going to take a lot more than their love for Letecia to get her out of this.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? Stranger things have happened. When it comes to a jury, it only takes one.
Sure. Yeah.
And I just can't imagine even one person on this jury going through the beginning, which is their weakest evidence, the probable cause, and then getting to what has come out over the last 3 years. And then they lay out everything. I can't imagine one having any question.
I can't imagine it either. So did you see that I had put in the chat about the most recent news article that came out? It actually came out late yesterday.
I did not see it yesterday, and I have a daily alert for this case. It comes to my Gmail every day, and I didn't see it.
Right. Here's why you didn't see it. So it did not pop up as a news article about Letecia's case. It's totally unrelated. It's talking about an accidental overdose on fentanyl inside of the El Paso County Jail. And it's got a woman's face in the headline, and you open it up, and it talks about several women involved with drugs in the jail, and Letecia being involved. So apparently one of these women who received this fentanyl in jail did lay down in her cell and went to sleep. That same woman, let me rewind back. During this article, it says that Letecia had come out of her jail cell. The investigators conducted an investigation into this woman's death and what took place. So they say that Letecia came out of her jail cell with a brown paper bag, sat that brown paper bag on a table, and another inmate came by, picked up that brown paper bag, and took it with them. That inmate is the one that overdosed.
Good God, Letecia.
The investigators say, we don't believe that there were drugs in the brown paper bag. I say, what was in the brown paper bag?
Yeah, what was it? A bologna sandwich and half an orange? What was in the brown?
No, girl, it was peanut butter. You know it's
peanut butter. I
sandwich.
forgot the peanut butter. It could be more peanut butter. That peanut butter terrorized the hell out of Letecia.
She's paying people with her kosher foods. You know, she's doing favors.
Her ass at kosher. She is such a you know what the thing is, if you just call her a piece of shit, that's a compliment.
Agreed.
You can't find an adjective for this woman. She's so bad.
At the beginning, she talked about how she only ate beets. Do you remember her beets that she ate?
Oh, only
she's
beets.
wild.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's she going to do when the gavel comes down in a few weeks and they say a jury of your peers is taking all your rights away?
Yeah.
Fun time's going to be over then. I hope she's enjoyed the last 3 years, and I say that in jest.
Agreed. It's time.
It's done. She has pulled every trick she can. I shouldn't say they've let her do it, because it's you can do it as long as you want until finally the judge says, all right, we've gone through all of this. You're sane. We're going to trial.
The judge has had a lot of patience. A lot of people don't understand what he's doing, but what he's doing is he's allowing her to pull out all her stops now so that later on when she tries to say, but I want to appeal this, it's, well, how can you appeal that when the judge already allowed you to do that? The judge already looked at that. The judge already, addressed that. He really let her run out all of her stops, and so he let her hang herself, really.
Yeah, he did. I mean, basically what he let her do is what we learned in 8th grade civics and watching the electric company. He let her use her rights. That's what he let her do. And now she's got no more tricks up her sleeve.
Absolutely agree.
Well, I tell you what, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you up here talking about this case.
Thank you.
You don't mind, would you send me an email after this? Because I would love to have you on for the next show we do about Gannon before the jury selection.
I would love to do so. Is your email in your description?
It is, or I can put it in the chat right now. CLL, it's the initials of the channel, 72020@gmail.com. It's in there too.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
All right. I will talk to you soon. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Let's have a big round of applause for Over Here. She also has a channel. The clip that I showed earlier today with Letecia shaking her thing at the club, that was from her channel. I'll put it in the description. She's agreed to come back and talk to us some more because we're going to cover Gannon again before jury selection. And that's all I got for you guys today. But it's been an awesome chat as always. And if I don't
Thank you.
Thank you, hon. And if I don't
All right,
see
I'm taking off.
All right, hon. Oh,
All right.
Here comes the round of applause. Thank you, everybody. Kat said, "Sorry, I'm late. I blame your clock's change." I almost said cock change. Huh. That's what Letecia was trying to do. All right, so if I don't see you guys over in Discord later today or in one of the Facebook groups, then I'm going to see you back here at 9 a.m. Central Time. Welcome to the new members. You're going to love it here. This is the best group of people you're going to find on the tubes for sure. Check the community tab. There's tons of members-only posts. We actually have a members live coming up for St. Patrick's Day. When we have our members lives, you just never know who's going to show up. It's always something. Always something. We also have a lot of giveaways going on the month of March. There's actually going to be one posted tomorrow. Got to be quick on that one. I tell you what, I wasn't prepared for that. You guys are fast. All right. I will see you guys back here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. You are the absolute best. Have a good one.